Welcome to Kitchen Counseling. I'm Chef Tom. I'm your motorcycle riding holistic chef. Now today we're going to do a little throwback to my childhood. This is Sunday morning here in Southern California, and growing up as a child, many Sunday mornings, this is the smell, this is what I woke up to that permeated throughout the house. This was my mom making her famous spaghetti sauce, and we had pasta, we had spaghetti and meatballs regularly on Sundays after church. So I've taken her recipe and I've changed it up a little bit. I've been told maybe too much, and so I kind of moved back a little bit. We've gone back and forth over the years, but I'm going to show you how to do my pasta sauce. This is going to actually be very simple. I love these old school recipes. This was handed down from my grandmother. And as I go through a lot of those recipes, everything was either 1-1-1 and just add, to taste and everything. So it was like you had to kind of figure it out. So like her basic pasta sauce recipe was basically, I'm going to turn this off a second. It's basically one large can of whole tomatoes that you blended up and throw those in there. It was one small can of tomato paste. It was one onion. It was one spare rib. And to make the meatballs for this, if you were going to make meatballs, it would be 1 pound of meat. So it was a lot of ones, and then the actual spices were just like poured on to where it looked right. Okay, so I've had over the years had to try and figure out for other folks how much that is, because that's how I learned how to cook. So that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to show you my version of the pasta sauce that I grew up with, and it is a staple in my life going forward. From this point forward, always has been, and it still will. It's always a favorite of mine. So we're going to start off with the first step in the process. We're going to brown a spare rib, a pork spare rib. I just got some little ones we're going to throw in there, and some onion and some garlic, and we're going to get that going. We're going to sweat the onions. We don't want to brown the onion and stuff, so we're not going to have it on super high heat, but we're going to actually just have it kind of a medium low heat, and we just want to start to brown the meat and make the onions kind of translucent and let the garlic come out. Once that happens and that's all done, it takes a few minutes, then we'll add in all the other ingredients. So let's do the first step here. I'm going to spin you down so you can actually see the pot and what we're doing here. So here's my pot. Here's all our goodies over here on the side. I'm going to crank this back up again. So I'd already got heated. You can see that the oil is really loose here, so I had already heated that up. You don't want to do it too long. You're going to end up burning it. You use olive oil. It has a low smoke point. You have to be very careful. Different oils have different smoke points, so they're good for different types of cooking. I love that sizzle. So basically, this is what we're doing here with these onions. We're going to turn them, they're white right now, we're going to turn them translucent. And if you cook this on a medium heat to a slightly medium-low heat, they won't burn on you, and they will turn translucent. You'll see the change in the texture and the color. And at the same time, we're going to throw our pork meat in here, and I just got some pork spare ribs here. Now the pork is going to go in for the flavoring. This pork will come out of the sauce when we're done. And this is basically just for the flavoring of the sauce. So I might have turned that down just a little bit too much, so let's go ahead and crank it up just a notch, get it back up to more of that medium heat, and we'll get this going. All right, let's get you back up here. So that's our first step in the process. All right, this is going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and do this, and when I come back, I'll let you know how long it took. And oh, I forgot, I didn't add the garlic. Well, can't miss that. So we're going to do a couple teaspoons of garlic just to kind of get that started, that flavor. Also, there'll be garlic in the meatballs, because I will make meatballs for the sauce, even if I'm not using them for a particular recipe that I need the sauce for. And the meatballs will be put off to the side, or you can put them in the freezer and save them. They're great. So I will bake some meatballs to put in here. That's what makes the sauce awesome, is that you actually are combining the juices of the pork and the beef. And that permeates throughout that whole sauce mixture. And the other step I do, which we're going to do later on, is I actually add towards the end of it, I actually add some cheese. So I think it's the flavors that are coming from the meat and the cheese that actually makes this sauce awesome. All right. So we'll be back in a few minutes when this is all ready to go to the next step. All right. See ya. Bye. All right, welcome back. All right, this only took a few minutes. I say, anywhere from about 4 or 5 minutes just to brown the meat and get the onions kind of soft. So let me show you what's going on down here. So here's our pot now. So we're just browning it, and you can see how the onions are really soft now. They've changed texture and color and all that. So now we're gonna add all of our other goodies to this, all right? So let's see what we got going. We're gonna do the tomato. Now I've got tomato puree. The original recipe from my mom and my grandma was whole tomatoes, and they used canned tomatoes, and then they just threw them in the blender and made a puree out of them. For ease and quickness, I have changed to just go to the puree myself. Now the recipe, and I'm going to give you the standard recipe. I am doubling this recipe. I always double or triple it because it's just good for so many different things. I can't make just one of these recipes. Hold on just a second. Let me go get some water here. All right. So our standard sauce recipe is going to be 1 28-ounce can of the tomato puree. Now I'm doing 2, like I said, I'm doubling it. So it's a 1 can of the tomato puree, 28 ounces, and 1 can of water. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Mixing all that in there. And then you're going to use 6 ounces of tomato paste. And since I doubled this, I went ahead and got the bigger can of tomato paste. So we got the 12-ounce one, which makes it really nice. Only got 1 can of paste to work with. But if you're doing the 6 ounces, it's just those little cans in the market. All right. So there is our tomato paste. Goodness all in there, just like so, just like that. I'll give a little bit of a stir. And then we're going to put all the spices in it. All right, so I use 1 bay leaf. And for all of the things I use, pretty much it's about 2 teaspoons of everything. So we're going to put some basil in here. Let's just take that shaker off of there. That's not good. A little 2 teaspoons of the basil. And then we're going to do 2 teaspoons of the oregano. So we're going to do the same thing here. And this is how I was taught, was with covering the top of it. You get a sense of how much it goes in there. We're doing 2 teaspoons of a kosher salt. And again, we'll go through and we'll taste it a little bit down the road and adjust if we need to. We're doing 2 teaspoons of the black pepper. The black pepper I've found over the years, it really gives it the depth. And then I add a teaspoon of crushed red pepper because I like a little bit of heat with mine. This is one thing I'll do a little different than my mom used to do. And then we're just going to give it a stir. So we're kind of covering, I learned to cover the top pretty much of the sauce. And then just stir it up, let it get going in there. And then we're going to crank up the heat to high. And we're going to bring this to a boil. All right. So let's swing you back up here. All right, so this is where we're at right now. So now, let's see, let's do a double check. I'll make sure I got everything in there for you. We started out with one of the pork spare ribs. I had some little ones, little pieces, but just one pork spare ribs, all you need for the flavoring. One onion, a tablespoon of the olive oil, and you just sweated that down. You brown the meat, and now we put in a 28-ounce can of the tomato puree, 6-ounce can of the tomato paste. We used 28 ounces of water, and then we did all of our spices. We also, I forget the garlic. We had 2 teaspoons of the garlic. Now, all our spices, we had 2 teaspoons of basil, 2 teaspoons of oregano, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of black pepper. So 2. And then we just went down to 1 teaspoon of the crushed red pepper. And then one last thing that I will do, and I will be at odds with other chefs on this and, professional folks that get all pissy about it or whatever, I will put a teaspoon of sugar. Now, a lot of them will use other venues like certain vegetables and stuff like that have sugar content in it, and stay away from the sugar. As I've gone down my path of learning nutrition and whatnot, I have stopped trying to worry about all the things that people tell me are not good for you. And the more I'm learning, the more I'm finding that some of that stuff is not so bad. So I still do it the old school way, like my grandma. I put a teaspoon of sugar in. The sugar will help balance out the acid in the tomatoes. Now we're gonna cook this. We're bringing it up to a boil. We're gonna cook this for about 30 minutes on the boil, just to kind of let it start mixing all together. And we're also going to let it start to reduce down so it starts to thicken up a little bit. And then at that point, I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of Pecorino Romano cheese. I'm gonna just stir that back in there. That's when I'm gonna taste it also and see if we adjust any of the ingredients. So that's my tasting time. And then after that, I'm gonna cook it for another 30 minutes. So it's gonna cook for an hour before I do anything else to it. All right, and then we'll add our meatballs to it, which will thin it. So we want to get it a little bit thicker before we do that. And then the meat juices from the meatballs and then the pork is what's going to bring this all together. And we're going to cook that for about an hour, and then it's going to be done. So we got a couple hours for the sauce to be start to finish, but it's worth it. And you make big batches, you put it in your freezer, it'll last for a long time. So we're going to go ahead and let this cook now. Once it gets to a boil and we get to that tasting part, we'll come back and we'll do that, and we'll go see if we need to adjust anything. All right, we'll see you in a little bit. Bye. Welcome back. All right, our pasta sauce is smelling good. It's just permeating throughout the whole house now, and that just makes me a happy person. So we're at a point now. It's been cooking now for about an hour. 30 minutes in, I did throw in the cheese and just mix that in. I did a little taste test. I'm letting that go right now. I can tell by looking at it, it needs a little bit more of the seasoning and the different spices. So we're gonna do another taste test now that it's all ready to go for the next step. We're gonna adjust our seasonings now. We're gonna take out that pork meat, because now the pork has already done its job. It's already got the juices are all through there and all that. We're gonna take that pork meat out, set it off to the side. We're gonna put our meatballs in now and let the beef do its thing. And we can just snack on the pork meat now while we're doing the rest of the stuff, which is one of the things I love about this. So we're gonna do that at this point. We're gonna adjust the seasoning, like I said, and then we're gonna let it cook for an hour. We wanna cook for an hour, let the meatballs cook all the way through. Don't mess with it for a while. Let them set up for a while before you even start trying to stir it. Let it go 30 minutes or so before you even try to stir it. Then lightly stir, just to kind of move things around. And that's really all that's left to this. So let's go ahead and spring down here so you can see what we got going on. So here's our pasta sauce. Now you can tell just by looking at it, it's really red. There's very little of the spices and stuff in there. So I can tell just by looking at it, it needs a little bit of something. We're gonna go ahead and get rid of the pork meat that we have in here. They're all cooked up all the way through. There we go. I know I had a few more in there. There's another one. There's one. It's like bobbing for apples. You can't really see them in there. But you can feel them, so you know they're in there when you hit one. All right. Awesome. I think we got them all. Okay, so I don't need this. So we'll set this off to the side. Now we'll do our little taste. Okay. I am getting a little bit of the seasoning, but I am just getting more of the tomatoes. So we are going to adjust this now. So we're going to add some more of the oregano. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of the fresh basil that I have here. That, between those two, we're going to actually pump it up a little bit. It does need a little taste more of the salt because I'm getting kind of a flat tomatoey flavor. Okay. And we're just going to add a little touch of the black pepper too. That seemed to need, everything needed to be bumped up a little bit. And you know, part of it could be that I was misreading my recipe here, because I was telling you how to make it, the 2 teaspoons and whatnot. That was for 1, and I doubled this, and I don't think I did that. So that's why everything was a little bit on the flat side. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and add a little bit more of the red pepper flake. So basically, I should have been putting in 4 teaspoons of a lot of that stuff instead of 2, and I was only putting in 2, thinking about what you guys would have been doing. But that's why, you know, that's why you taste and adjust. Sometimes you mess up, you know, and you're just like, wait a minute, why is that not tasting right? I make this all the time. Okay, now you're starting to see a little bit more flakes in there and all that. Now I'm getting more along the lines of what I want. There we go. Now we're tasting a little better. Okay, I'm gonna grab my meatballs. And we got our meatballs here. I'm gonna just throw them in here and let them sink. Grandma would be proud this time. I actually got 16 meatballs out of this 1 pound of meat. I have never gotten 16 meatballs out of 1 pound of meat. There you go. Now you just let them cook for a while. Let them set. You need them to cook a little bit so they don't break apart on you. So let them cook for about 20-30 minutes before you start to stir them for the first time. So let them sit in there and kind of stew in that sauce and all that. And then you can stir them. You can stir lightly around them, and then you could taste it again. If it needs a little bit more adjustment on the sauce, then you put that in there. After that, that's going to be done. So these are going to cook for an hour. So we're going to let this go now for an hour. We'll check back on it and stuff, taste it, and about when that hour's up, then we're done. The reason you're going to cook it for an hour right now is you need the meat to cook all the way through. And what you want to do is that initially, when the meat starts to release all that fat and everything, it's going to thin the sauce. It's going to make it really thin. So you want to cook it to let it thicken back up as much as you can. All right, so those are a couple steps. So we'll be back in an hour when it's ready to go and we're ready to eat. All right, see you later. Bye. All right, welcome back. We've gone through the whole process now with the pasta sauce. We're at the very end of it. We had the pork meat in there for an hour. We cooked that. We took that out. We put the meatballs in there. We cooked them for an hour. We adjusted some of the seasonings to get it just right, especially since I messed up early on and I only did 1 set of the seasonings, and I doubled this recipe for you, but I was only following the 1 set for you so that you can follow along on the actual amounts that were going in. So we had to adjust and put some more in there. That kind of stuff happens. That's the reason for tasting. So here's our final product here. This is Tom's pasta sauce. And you see you got some thickness in there, but it's still also loose. So it'll attach to those pasta, whatever pasta you decide to use, but it's also just not super duper thick. So it has a nice little consistency to it. There's my pasta sauce. Grandma Ngoya she'd be happy with this one. I think she would tell me that, you're doing all right. You're doing all right, kid. All right. So this one, I want you to know you can make this in bunches like I do, and I freeze it in batches so that you can use it for different things. You can use it for spaghetti meatballs. I'm going to use it for a chicken parmesan recipe that we're going to be doing. You can use it for anything else that you want to put in there. So you can make a big batches ahead of time and always have fresh pasta sauce available for you in your freezer. You don't have to go buy all the jar stuff with all the added stuff, and you know what you put into this. It has some good solid ingredients in it. I hope you like it. If you liked what you saw, like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check out the info at the end of the show for all the streaming services through KP Media TV. And remember my 4 F's: family, friends, fun, and food. Those are the things I believe accentuate our lives. Hope you have a good one. We'll see you on down the road. Until the next time, it's time to go eat some spaghetti and meatballs. See ya.